Sopes are one of the street vendor specialties that you can make almost as good at home. Never had a sope, let me explain to you what they are. It's like the same dough that's used to make corn tortillas, but it's pressed out into a smaller disc, but it's thicker. It's baked the same way you would bake a tortilla, but not quite as much. And then when it starts to cool down that you can handle it, you pinch up a little border around it. I'll show you how to do all of that. Then you can return it when it's time to eat it to a griddle and do it in a little bit of oil to crisp it up at the bottom, and splash it with some salsa. It's really all about the fresh baked goodness of that fresh masa. But my guess is that a lot of you won't have access to fresh masa. If you do, then I would highly recommend using that. That's what I'm going to show you today. But for those of you that have a Mexican grocery store or even a well-stocked grocery store near you, you could probably find Masa Harina, the Maseca brand, and you just rehydrate that with warm water, let it sit for about 20 minutes to fully rehydrate, and then continue on with the recipe. For those of you that want to go the next step up, you can get heirloom corn Masa Harina, the dried masa, from our friends at Masienda, and you can just go to masienda.com and order it directly from them. I'm going to show you how to do this with fresh ground masa because I want to show you what the consistency of that is, because I know a lot of you put in the comments that you don't work with fresh masa and you don't know what it would feel like. So I'm going to show you what it would feel like. So these are very, very simple. And very simple. You have to learn the technique of it, but there's not very many ingredients. In fact, we're going to start with fresh masa here. And I've got this at the right consistency. When you go to a tortilleria to buy your fresh masa, it will probably be much stiffer than this. So you have to add enough liquid to it. And when I say liquid, it's just water to make it very soft and pliable. It's way softer than, say, Play-Doh or something like that. And it will be tacky, but not sticky. That's what you really want to get it to. So you can see that it's kind of tacky and it sort of sticks a little bit to my fingers, but it's not sticky where you could really see it sticking to that. Now, I want to add to that about a half a teaspoon of salt. My masa covered hands make this a little bit harder to do. So I'm going to sprinkle that evenly over the top of this and then work it in a little bit. When you start working with masa, whether it's the reconstituted masa harina or it's the fresh masa that you've gotten from a tortilleria, it'll always sort of be on your hands a little bit because it is tacky stuff. So once you start this, I like to just keep going with it. And then when you finish the whole process, then you can wash your hands of it. But you will notice it will be on your hands. So I want to make this into 8 pieces. So I'm just going to roll it out so that I can evenly divide it into about half there, and then this into half again, and then those are not exactly even, those ones on the end like that. So I'm going to take just a touch and put it over here. So we've got that, and then let's roll this, see if we can be a little bit more even with these guys. So this stuff is just really easy to work with. There's no proteins in it, no gluten in it, so it's not going to spring back like a pie crust might if you did this, or a bread dough if you did this. But I like to form them into balls. You're not trying to do anything pretty here. It's just to make the next step more even. So you roughly put them into those balls. I'm just going to move this over just a little bit so that I have the tortilla press. Now there's all kinds of tortilla presses. This is one that was made in Oaxaca. And so it's 2 pieces of steel like this. You can find the round ones very readily available in Mexican grocery stores and very easily found online. And they're either going to be cast aluminum or cast iron. The cast iron ones are the ones that I recommend because they're just heavy. They just don't move around on your countertop, and that will be great. This one, the ones from Oaxaca are always square like this, but you want to cut a couple pieces of plastic. This is like a vegetable bag from the grocery store, cut to fit this space here. I usually cut them round because the tortilla is round, but you could easily cut them into square pieces. And then with one of the pieces of plastic down on the bottom, I'm going to put the ball there and then cover it with a second piece of plastic. And this is a very gentle press. What we're trying to do is get it to about 3.5 inches. So you saw how gently I pressed it, and I pressed it too far because I got about a 4.5-inch ball there. But the nice thing about working with masa is that you can ball it up again and reform it real fast. So I'm just going to give it a little tiny press and then turn it 180 degrees, give it another little press, and that's just about what I'm looking for. Right there. Okay, so then you take the top piece of plastic off. I'm going to heat this griddle to about a medium heat. Now, when we bake tortillas, we often talk about 2 different temperatures. A lower temperature to start, and then a higher temperature that we're going to flip the tortilla onto so that it balloons up like pita bread. This one is going to be cooked at a more modest temperature all the way through, and we only really need to flip it one time. So when this is sort of medium hot here, then I'm going to lay this on there and bake it for a couple of minutes per side. Okay, this is heated nicely now, sort of an even heat all the way across. This is a rolled steel griddle. I'm going to just with one hand touching the masa like that, I'm going to peel off that other piece of plastic, and then I'm going to lay this onto the hot surface like that and continue to press out the remaining balls of masa. Okay, last one of these coming off. I have a couple of balls of dough that I'll have to do later, but this griddle would hold 6 of them, so that's what I'm going to show you. Now, they took about 3 minutes. I think I said 2 at the beginning, but they took about 3 minutes per side, and they don't brown a ton, okay? You'll see they're going to get a second cooking here, but they won't be completely done in the center. It will be just a little bit masa underdone. You'll feel that because the next step is to form the little ridge around the outside of it, making them sort of like little boats. And I do that with thumb and first and sort of second finger all working together. And you're going to press like that and then turn and press, turn and press. Now you want to let these cool off just to the point that you can actually do this forming. If you let them cool off completely, the masa will set and you won't be able to pinch up the border on them. So it's going to be a little bit of a hot job here. And then you notice I've got the little exterior of it done, but nothing in here. And usually the street vendors will just pinch like that in the middle, making what I call little waves in there. So I've got 5 more to do here. Now the next stage in this will be to finish them with this sort of what I would call a sort of shallow frying. But I'll need to line this little baking sheet here with some paper towels. There we go. And then I'm going to film the bottom of this griddle, or you might want to change to a large skillet here. I'm going to film it with oil. Most of the vendors that I know work with oil in Mexico, but some of the old-fashioned type, they will work with lard on this. It makes it really delicious, but much sort of heavier, I would say. So it'll take about, well, 1/3 to 1/2 cup or so of this because we want a fairly nice amount on here. I'm just tipping it side to side to make sure that everything is nicely covered. And then we will lay these guys back into this and they will start to get a little crispy on the bottom. It won't take too much time here. But one of the things that I'm going to do is to kind of tip them up on their side here and take a little bit of oil and splash on them. The idea is that you get a little bit of that softening oil in the center of them. So I'm just going to tip it up like this and take a little bit that I can kind of pour over the tops of them. Now, the sopes go by many different names in different parts of Mexico and have different preparations. My favorite ones in a lot of ways are the ones that they make in Oaxaca, and those are called memelas. And those don't go through the frying underneath like this because they're working on clay griddles, and you don't fry on a clay griddle. But they'll take asiento, which is the bottom of the lard container, which tastes just like roast pork but is richer. And they'll put a little bit of that in the center well to sort of basically melt in there and just enrich it. So you'll find as you travel through Mexico that something that looks like these sopes in many different places, but they will be absolutely the flavors of the region. Okay, so let's take a look at these guys now. I'm going to sort of flip them a little bit, and now that I've gotten enough of the oil in the center, I'm going to take a look at the bottoms of them and see once we start to get some browning going on there, a little bit of browning there. But I want to see that, and I can also at the same time pour out some of the oil that is in the center so that they just have a really nice amount, just coating it there. But now I'm going to flip them to get a little brown on that top ridge. And this all goes quite fast. And then we're going to set up a pretty plate here with some very, very simple toppings. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of green salsa, tomatillo salsa, roasted tomatillo salsa, a little bit of a 3 chili salsa that I absolutely love. That's made with tomatillos, garlic, and different kinds of dried chilies. Some onions and cilantro, a little bit of añejo cheese, making something that's very classic, simple, and beautiful. But you might want to go for other things. So you could think about a little bit of shredded beef could go in here, shredded beef filling, some chicken in mole. You could use a little bit of beans with some chorizo sausage. That would be absolutely delicious. You could keep it all vegetable by putting on here some roasted poblanos that are cooked with some caramelized onions. A little touch of cream on that would be absolutely delicious. But now we've cooked them through again, and we've crisped them up on the outside in very much street vendor style. If you're going to serve these to guests, you can do all of the first baking and pinching a few hours ahead, but keep them very well wrapped in plastic. And then you do this part of it just when you're going to serve it. So I think they're ready now, so I'm going to put them out on a dish here. And then I'm going to make 3 of them with one salsa and 3 of them with another salsa. Turn that off. Okay. So roasted tomatillo, you just splash a little bit of it over the bottom of it. Again, I say when you think about these, it's not all about the filling. It's all about the beautiful masa that is below that topping. A little bit of the 3 chili salsa. This has guajillo chilies and chipotle chilies and cascabel chilies in it. Each one adding something really beautiful to those flavors of the salsa. And then, of course, no street food is complete without a little bit of onions and cilantro. And then what I really like to do here is the sprinkling of the añejo cheese, which is sort of like Mexico's equivalent of a Parmesan or Romano cheese. So that goes over the top. These are snacks. These are little appetizers. Everybody that tastes them just falls in complete love with them because they are the essence of Mexican flavor. I hope you enjoy exploring them too.